Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of SIG Node. It is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Sergey, do you want to give us the update on PRs?
Yeah, we did a great job last week with CAPs, like enhancement repository. Like we have many CAPs approved, merged. Also, thanks to Don approving community contributions. So we have contributing MD now and some updates there, archive from last year nodes, this kind of PRs. Unfortunately, we don't have much progress in KK repository, but it's easy to explain. I mean, we've been busy with CAPs. So hopefully we can pick up the pace and start working on that. There are plenty of PRs needs approval. So if you go to one of our, like two of our charts, one for CI, one for regular, there are plenty of PRs needs approval. So if you approve, please try to find time to make progress and merge something.
Okay. So Sergey, is there any way we can combine both of them? I typically go through the SIG Node one, and I think it's down to 19 over there. I can make a pass at the other one as well, but if we have like a combined view, it'll be easier, I think.
Yeah, I filed a bug on GitHub asking whether they can allow us to query by column. I don't know. I didn't get any replies. I mean, GitHub is not very good in replying back.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can send a list, but it's just two links.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We just keep it at the top of the. Yeah, I mean it's there. So I'll just follow from there. No worries.
Yeah, Sergey, we do have, I filed an issue against, I think, Contribex, and I think some folks from the Kubernetes project from Contribex have been talking to GitHub about improving support for boards and that kind of thing, but I don't know where exactly those things have landed.
Okay, I may join the meeting once and ask them.
Cool. Anything else on that?
No, I think we can get going.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't have any updates on PRs. I've been mostly heads down in the enhancements repo. So yay, almost everything that Node proposed got approved, which is very exciting. So looking at today's agenda, there's two things from me. I don't know if anybody else has any agenda items, but feel free to add them to the backlog. I will paste the link in the chat. Otherwise, I guess we'll have a short meeting. And my first item is a short thing, which is Node bug scrub. So I was looking again at the Node backlog, and we have something like 500 issues in Kubernetes. And I haven't been doing anything really to try to stave back the tides of issues because there's just so many and they're incoming, and there's such a big backlog. It feels kind of impossible to start. So I was thinking we could hold a event where we do a bug scrub. So basically like a 2-day event. We'll try to find some sort of like mentors or leads in different time zones. We'll have a bunch of documentation for what to do and set up with tooling and whatnot. I don't have any of the details ironed out yet, but I wanted to see if people are interested, and if so, do the dates of June 24th to 25th work? And if so, I will go ahead with planning.
I love the idea. I think we should do this. Yeah, I think many years ago we did once and make a huge improvement for overall, and also help new people. They want to contribute, but they don't know how to start. So actually that should be helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm seeing lots of +1s in the chat, which is really exciting. So I hope to see everybody there. My plan is I'm going to just those 2 days, I'm going to be doing nothing but scrubbing bugs and running this. So, and Work is very happy to let me do that. So I'm going to continue with the assumption that it's going to be June 24th to 25th. I will send a placeholder invite to the mailing list, and I'll start getting details organized. Since it's more than a month out, there's still some time, but we might use Triage Party or something like that. And I will need both folks who are interested in volunteering to squash the bugs, and folks who are interested in being mentors, sort of like leading for given time zones and whatnot, since we'll probably have people from all over the globe who want to help. cool. Okay, people say just pick a date. The date is June 24th and 25th. That's the date. I hope that the 2 days will be enough, but if not, hopefully what the outcome of this will be, we'll get the bug backlog in like reasonable shape, and then we can start adding issues to our weekly triage. So we're not just looking at PRs, we're also looking at issues every week as well, which will make it much easier to maintain that steady state. And then if we want to do something like this, like once a release, I think it shouldn't be too hard to keep up on a future basis. So yay, I'm so happy that everybody in the chat is so excited about this. Great. The other thing I had on the agenda is a work breakdown for swap, if folks want to talk about that. I made a Jira on the public Red Hat Jira if people want to see how I broke it down. But basically, there's, and I will paste that in the chat. Basically, there's like some coding work that needs to be done, and there's a huge amount of CI work that needs to be done. And I am very happy to, especially since I have made API changes before and wrote the CAP, I'm happy to go ahead and do the code changes. But I have sort of a prereq of I need some like CI changes done. Like we need images with swap on them, and we need to be able to provision those in end-to-end jobs. So I know some folks at Google and possibly elsewhere were interested in working on things. Is the CI stuff that's something someone else can pick up?
Yeah, hi, Elena. Yeah, I here. I can help with the swap work here. I guess, do we have a ticket for that particular CI requirement already?
So it's documented in the CAP. I haven't filed anything in the upstream Kubernetes repo. I like have, put together this Jira epic, which is public, so you should be able to view it to sort of track like an overall breakdown, because I needed to do that anyways. But I wanted to check in and make sure, like, how do people feel about this breakdown? Is this division of work okay? And then if so, like, then maybe we can go ahead and start filing upstream issues for things for tracking.
Yeah, I think it works for me.
It can sometimes confuse the release team if we have like 5 different issues for the CAP. So sometimes it's easier to just track it as like a comment on the CAP saying like this piece of work is this PR and this piece of work is this PR and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Then I will do that. I'll make like I'll edit the first comment in the enhancement tracking issue to sort of have that work breakdown, and then we can just start filling in PRs as they come in.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Elena.
Cool. And I know that there have been some folks who have been interested in testing. So once we have like some CI infrastructure and also the code implementation is done, I am happy to go and like write the documentation in order to enable this for testing. So if people want to jump in with that, just send me a note. I'm happy to help out with that if you have any difficulties. And we have a Node E2E item on the agenda now from Runal and Harshal.
Hey, so I want to quickly chat about this issue. So I'm not sure if folks have been following, but there was a runc RC94 update, and it caused regressions. And like one thing we realized was like, so Harshal can give some more details. He just joined. Was like if we had the cryo blocking job in the CI enabled, it would have kind of caught that. So like just wanted to, like, Harshal has been running that job on the PRs for a while. So Harshal, do you want to give an update on what's happening there and what we want to do next?
Yeah, so we are running node conformance and node feature jobs in upstream pro job. And what happened yesterday, about 22 or 23 hours ago, runc update was merged in Kubernetes, and immediately the only job that is there right now, node E2E with the remote runtime, that's the one I pinged it here on the chat, started failing. And turns out the runc update was causing that. And if this job was blocking, we could have caught it. So right now, from the SIG node point of view, the only node E2E job running is running using Docker not with a remote runtime, nothing that is blocking. So if this job we could make it blocking, then we can catch such regressions early enough with the remote runtime.
And the systemd C group driver is the other factor here, because like there's a C group FS driver and there's the systemd C group driver.
Yeah. Yeah. So this job uses C group v1 with systemd on a Fedora CoreOS thing. And so this will be another testing scenario that we can cover with this job.
Would switch to containerd help, or it's purely on?
Sergey, I guess like since we are already adding another job with Cryo, I mean, we don't mind if we have even more jobs, but I think there might be like a budget issue that we'll need to have to check. So we are just kind of like bringing this back up again, and we feel that we've been running this job long enough. So I wanted to check with SIG Node if there are any objections to making this blocking. We feel it'll be beneficial if we can prevent regressions of this sort running this job. And another thing that came up in the discussion over there, but I admit I don't have enough insight into, is the node E2E serial would have also helped, but apparently the state of that job is not good. So we have to dig into it and see what we need to do to get it back into a good state, and if we need to run it with the systemd C group driver as well.
Just for a little bit of context, because I had taken up, or I think I had bumped this conversation at some point. So I had chatted with Ben, who was concerned about adding a new blocking job, but we had kind of figured all of that out. I think there's some goals at some point to not have like separate blocking jobs for example, like containerd or Docker or Cryo. He'd prefer them to all be like one single thing because it's a bit expensive. But right now we do have the job. It's already running on every PR. It's currently not reporting, but the hope I think is to set it to reporting and then after a little bit of signal there to set it to blocking. And I think that we just fell off the radar for a couple of months until run C breakage.
And then from the expense point of view, whether you have a one job or you have multiple job blocking, it doesn't make any difference, because when we have one job, we are in the background invoking different VMs.
I'm not. So we already have all of the jobs, so that's sort of moot. I think the expense was mostly in terms of just like build time, right? Like we have to have like these 3 separate builds running in parallel. We can't just reuse the one build because we've moved away from Bazel. That was Ben's concern. But we're already running these things, so it's not really a blocking argument at this point.
I'm not arguing
this
about
has been running for some time.
Cryo. I just trying to understand what the scope of the issue. Is it like only on Cryo, only on specific settings, or it's also on containerd? So.
I have the
Sergey,
same question.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, Harshal. Do you know, like, if it also affected the C group FS driver?
I don't know. The default Docker thing didn't get affected, so I'm assuming there's no effect on a C group driver, because the one with the Docker test is running fine.
I haven't seen any issue with that.
I'm trying to ask because we have also like the containerd tests, right, that are also running conformance. So that one isn't using the C group driver though. So if it's not a C group driver, we should see the same failure in the containerd test, right? But if it's a systemd C group driver, then I imagine it's only would show up here in the Cryo test, right?
Yeah. Brian was trying to say something, Brian.
Oh, I was just saying I've been running containerd with C group FS against conformance and a whole bunch of stuff. I haven't seen any issue with it. So
okay, all right. So I think containerd already runs on the PR and it went through. So I'm assuming like it didn't hit any issue. It's only like I think post merge that we saw this job start fail.
There's this kind of things we've been discussed a couple years ago. So we have this systemd related regression in the past. The problem is we cannot stay always on the latest of the systemd, so which version, and so we don't want to make our conform tests, even like the node E2E, become to the blocker, because in the reality, for the user, they basically have to rely on a different version, right? They rely on different version of the systemd. We used to have the core as always block node like the constant of the field, because they're always up to latest kernel, latest of the system D. But that's really give us like a lot of false alarm signal to the signal. So we spend a lot of time to debug system debug. So that's why we decided decided to remove of the core OS. But before we decided to remove of the core OS as the node E2E test, we also want to like they are not blocker. We want like most reliable stuff, so then we can node E2 can focus on SIG node features. System D is not a SIG node feature. Okay, so this is basically have the space to say, okay, here it is the SIG node feature, and all the dependency, we try to find the most reliable things. Like for example, we could open up the OS image with the C group version 2 and to testing that one because that it is our SIG node feature. But we are not open to test of the different version of the system D because that's not our feature. That's more so that's the decision we've said this is more vendors conform test for their production. So let's not shift those kind of overhead to the community to drive because each vendor may have the different of the requirement. That's kind of the decision we make in the past. So I just want to share with here. So like we do have the Fedora of the image in the past. That's even like a couple years ago. Because we are open for the SIG version 2. And because that's the feature we sign on. And also we have this CRI test and the CRI tool, all those kind of things is built. So then we can hide off the different of the container runtime. Because back then there's several container runtime came to the SIG node. And we cannot really in this community and effective test all the container runtime. But of course, we did later because due to the maturity, reliability, we graduate container D and CRI to the CNCF owned container runtime, right? So, but at that time, we did the different decision. So after that one, which one we should be testing? We can come up this one after we did doing that Docker sham deprecation, because until today. Basically, default testing still goes to the Docker share because we default that discussing. So I just want to give some history here.
Yeah, Don. So like I think like two factors here. So so in runC upstream, we have CI covering at least a couple of distributions like Fedora and Ubuntu, and yes. Like we have, I think we have more folks participating. To trying to keep this green, like like Harshal is monitoring this job, and like our hope is like if we get it blocking, then we don't break it. Like right now we are in this cycle that every time we try to update runC, we have this back and forth. So and we are shipping systemd C group driver and OpenShift in production for years now, and like we are kind of motivated to keep this job green, like even upstream. So, and I think like the bigger issue is like whenever we do this runC back and forth, our features keep on getting delayed because like, oh, the confidence goes away. We updated runC, it broke us. Now we're going to go back to the previous RC. And so every time the delta to the next RC becomes bigger and bigger because meanwhile we get bug fixes and stuff and the like CVE fixes for which we have to update runC anyways. So if I feel that if we get this job blocking, then it'll make our job of updating runC easier in general. And like,
I want to make sure this is not just like the if it's not just like the runC problem. Sounds like there's the more like the runC integration with the systemd integration with CRI problem. So
no, this is kubelet calling into the code. Kubelet has support for both systemd C group driver as well as a C group FS, right? So what's happened in runC side is the Kerr has been working on updating runC and doing the fix up for C groups and so on. But since we haven't updated runC in so long, while he was doing the updates, he probably missed some code parts that needed to be updated in the kubelet, and we don't have a blocking test for that, which is why like it got merged because nothing was testing the systemd C group integration from the kubelet side. But if we had a blocking job over there, then we would have like more coverage there, right? If we say that kubelet doesn't support systemd C group driver, then like that code shouldn't have been added to the kubelet at all in the first place, right?
So I'm a little bit of a newcomer to this, but I read through the SIG Node minutes, and my understanding based on like previous meetings that we had last year was that this has sort of continually been a problem, and the goal of like our CI upstream is not just to support containerd or to support Docker, it's to support a CRI. And then in order to do that, we need to be testing more than one container runtime. And so the fact that we don't have a blocking job for anything other than the containerd right now is probably a problem from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, like, if we're trying to, if the kubelet supports the systemd C group driver, right, it makes sense we should have some type of test for that, right? That does make sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? Every time we try to update it, we don't have a signal, we'll just end up breaking it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is kind of being discussed many times, even CRI. I think the menu is there. So we do want to have like the CRI test, but have to own by people implement of the CRI. But last many years, there's no such test added until recently here. So that's the problem for the node E2E. So we're also open, but then we just want to have the owner, right? So every time we talk about this kind of problem, every time came here, people, their development being blocked. I try to play the evil dagger here. So the people just say, oh, add this one. So this is why we in the past we add a lot, but then nobody really maintain. Nobody really have this kind of things. So that's why I have to deprecate it, or we have to remove. That's the problem. So if we think about the we do talk about this for containers. That's why earlier I said, okay, we deferred discussing. We said, okay, go with the Docker shim deprecation. Let's figure out how we are going to maintain of the CI related container runtime. And do we need to double those efforts? Can we go to the node E2E, like the reduce of the end of the E2E, like the cluster level of E2E? So we didn't draw conclusion yet. So we can reopen this discussing and discuss. But on the other hand, it is if it becomes a blocker, and also it's not really carefully maintained, that will block a lot of the people's PR. This is what we have concern in the past. Like CoreOS stuff always block everybody's merging. So that end up, we always have to debug the systemd issues for everybody.
Yeah, so I think, Don, the difference is like when we started Cryo, we were 2 people working on getting it working. Now we have a much bigger team. You can see a lot more folks from Cryo participating and working on these efforts. So like we are definitely like on board to be responsible for keeping any such job like green. Yeah.
I know that those concerns were raised by Ben, Don, and so I think our goal was, this is why we added that job, and it's on every PR running right now to make sure that it's stable enough that it's not just going to be randomly flaking and therefore like blocking CI unnecessarily. And I think until we saw this breaking change, the signal was quite good. It was green. And so the fact that the signal was quite good until it was green and then something merged and it broke it, like that is a good indicator that we should probably consider making it a blocking job. But if those criteria aren't being met, then obviously we don't want to have it a blocking job.
So we can just about this.
I think Ben's point is we need to minimize the number of jobs and establish some way to look at jobs that run asynchronously. Yeah, because I mean, if you don't have a way to track jobs that running asynchronously, we would never scale to the to the scale we want. So, I mean, we cannot make everything blocking just because we found the issue once. I'm not saying about this case. I'm just as a rule of thumb, it shouldn't be the decision point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the other thing I kind of wanted to mention also is just like the job I think we're talking about here is like the conformance job, right? So it sounds like the nice job that would cover most of the regressions for run C are the serial jobs, which are broken in general and can't be made blocking because they're serial and stuff, right? So just another thought, maybe it makes sense to perhaps like spend some time investing in those tests as opposed to like maybe that has better signal for us, right, than the conformance job. I don't know, maybe not. Just a thought I want to throw out there. Right.
Yeah. And I think there's one more comment from Brian in the chat, like the fact this was exposed after run C RC4. Like, so Brian, that's a great point. But the challenge is like, we don't have enough bandwidth on the run C side, like as is like Kerr is doing most of the work to keep the run C CI green, and like having run C folks be responsible for doing Kubernetes CI may be a challenge. What we could do is like somehow absorb run C head here in Kubernetes, but that's just one more job, and the question will come up on like who owns that job and who is looking at it. So like at least a release has some checkpoints where when we try to update it, if we have like enough CI that gives us assurance that the update is not going to break us, but it will be better than where we are.
Yeah, I don't think we need to run against every PR in run C, but having a periodic job seems worthwhile.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Brian. This is basically what I argue is just blocker for the every PR. And I totally agree. We should have like the periodical CI to run against this one. We even talked to run C folks in the Hope Lantau is here today. We talked to them and maybe identify some conformance test or CRI test. That's originally we talk about the CRI test and share with them to become to their blocker. In the past, I haven't followed up all the detail after those discussing, but we could talk about those kind of things.
Yeah, so
Tom,
like, yeah, I'm happy to facilitate that. I'm one of the run C maintainers. Like, so I think again, I've had this conversation with David and a few others. Like one more challenge we have had with run C is like, I would like more frequent updates of run C into Kubernetes, but we insist on getting tags. And because of that, like every time we try to tag something in run C, like people are, oh no, we need to fix this little thing. And by the time we get a tag out, it's like 3-4 months. And so for solid 3-4 months, we never update anything into cAdvisor or Kubernetes. And by the time we try to absorb it, it's like a whole lot of changes. And it makes it harder. So like, and like, I don't know, like how we can change that. I would really love it if we can frequently update run C into cAdvisor and update it. But if we insist on like tags over there, that's additional burden on the run C maintainers, as it is like only there's 3-4 of us. And you're like kind of forcing, no, you have to release every week or every 2 weeks because Kubernetes needs a tag. So that's another challenge we have.
I think today in the, sorry, this is Lantau. I think today in the, at least in the Containerd repository, Containerd does update run C periodically, and all the updates should need to go through Node E2E test because we have Node E2E as pre-submit there. So although run C doesn't have pre-submit blocking things, but Containerd does periodically update run C, and everything needs to go through the test.
Yeah, we could probably.
That's a great point. But,
sorry. Hey, Murnell and Lantau.
So I think like
Mike, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say there's no reason we can't just run off master, at least one cry test run if we wanted to in Containerd. That should cover a lot of it. I know cryo guys could probably do the same thing if you're not already doing it.
We already do that. That's what I was going to say. Like
cryo, because actually from the oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, cryo is running off master, folks. But remember, this is different. This is the vendoring of run C into cAdvisor and Kubernetes, which is causing the problems. Not using the run C binary directly. That is already being consumed by Containerd frequently, and cryo is just building. Cryo PRs of master are using the run C master today.
Gotcha. So right. So what you're then looking for is that project to also be doing the same kinds of things, making sure.
Right.
running with master runs. Yeah,
So-
we can
so-
do that at the various project levels. That seems easy enough.
Yeah.
Totally. Wait, it sounds like we are converging on, we do want to improve our SIG Node E2E test and have that build of that test scenario, cover this kind of things, and also have like the continuous integration test to run periodically here, right? So for this kind of integration, and it's no matter it's for containerd or it is the CRI, because anyway we do have the node image test include both CRI and also the containerd right now. So that's why we want to evolve, add a new test scenario here just for the node ETD.
But it seems that based on
go ahead, Neto, sorry.
Yeah, it seems that based on what Bruno said, that is a problem with the RunC library vendor in Kubernetes.
Right. Yep.
If that's the case, it's a different story. I don't know what's the policy we have updating that dependency.
So like David is open to taking whatever tags, but I think in the main Kubernetes repo, the policy is that we don't take anything that doesn't have a tag. And that has been the challenge because like there's too much time passes in between tags. And then we have to absorb those changes, try to adapt to the library changes. Like the goal is like, at least my hope is that with all the changes Kerr has made recently, we shouldn't see a lot of changes after we get past this particular update, because he's been improving things, fixing things. So once we get past this one, hopefully the next set of changes won't be as bad.
Yeah, that's interesting that they have the rule for tags, Murnell. Is that only for a release, or is that also for CI/CD, normalized across EPR?
I think like Dims and Jordan are the stakeholders there. Pushing for the tag.
I'm messaging Dims couldn't make it today because there's a conflicting steering meeting, but I'm because I've talked to Dims about this previously, about the lack of frequency of RunC releases. And
well, it would make sense then to run both if you had the the bandwidth to run both the tag version that you're potentially going to ship and also master, so that we could have at least in an optional mode, so that we could get some results and push that back to RunC. Your PR broke us.
So I think the challenge is automatic vendoring won't work, right? Like binary.
Yeah, that's actually the question. Yeah, that's the question I wanted to ask, because we have in the containerd job today, there's a master version that uses the latest version of containerd and latest version of RunC, like the binary. So the question is maybe if it's possible for us to modify that test to also use latest version of RunC vendored in, right? That sounds like kind of what we're trying to go after, right? That's okay.
So the problem is, I understand the Manu just say, okay, we could do whatever, but it's just Kubernetes, because once you start to integrate with Kubernetes, I think SIG should be okay, easy, because totally under SIG Node control. But the Kubernetes actually, and also it's just library, right? So we could address that problem. But for the Kubernetes integration, even we build off the node E2E test there, there's the rule. We have to validate, sounds like, and so that's why we need to partner with the RunC folks community and then say, can they introduce tag more frequently, daily? Is it possible they could tag that daily, so then we could have the daily job run, and we could automate this kind of the vendoring things for our periodical CI just for this kind of cases. Can we do that, Manu, since you are the
I think, Don, what we can do is like I can try to invite some of the RunC folks here to a SIG Node meeting, or we can have like a special meeting that works, because Akihiro is one of them, and I think this time is not great for him. And we'll probably need Alexa, Kerr, and I, and then we can see if we can figure out a plan.
I just spoke with Dims to try to get his take, and the issue with like trying to integrate things like sort of in between RunC releases is that then there's no coordination between, for example, cAdvisor, containerd, the other runtimes. And so Dims is pro more tags because trying to like go in between without tags is going to just make that integration and standardization difficult.
Well, what we can commit to from a RunC side is that we'll have a tag before a Kubernetes release goes out, right? That's something we can say. So you keep on taking changes, but like by the Kubernetes code freeze or some date, we can we can get a tag out. That could be one option, right?
Yeah, I think that the concern is like not wanting to have a bunch of different versions of run C in a single product. You want everything on the same version.
Yeah.
So.
I saw the Brian's comment on the chat.
Yeah.
He said the daily tagging sounds rough. I totally agree, but at least better than today, right? But what earlier I also mentioned that I hope we could carry on. It is when we development of the CRI test. Actually, that time we want to partner with the container community, also run C community. And we want to define some of the CRI tests. I know this is not the cover about vendoring things. I think we could evolve that one. That time there's the discussing it is, we could simplify our load ETE test, have some basic tests and work with container. Can we include the community and can we include that one at the run C community too? So we could add some tests for them. So they could add that as the, because we simplify this whole thing and just for the container D, and it's the basically scenario, what we ask for, define those contract between run C and the CRI world. So we add to them.
It's the container runtimes themselves that convert the CRI, requests, the CRI tests into run C execution. That's why Ronald was saying he's running off master in run C. Thus, on every PR and periodically, you're already getting cry test executed against the run C master. Right. And if we do that in container D as well, either optionally or just make it that way, then we'd always be in sync with run C's master, at least in an optional test. And that's all I was saying is I'll talk to DEMS and see if there's a way that we can get an optional test for run C to be updated in the C advisor to bucket. But you're right, Don. We've got cry test. It's got a good subset. It's not good enough. We need to add more tests to it to cover some of the additional use cases that we're seeing now in Kubernetes. But if we can keep if everybody knows, hey, that's being tested over there and that's making run C better when we consume it, then yeah, I think we'll be better off, right? And I know we just moved a lot of the stats work, which is why a lot of the test cases we're using C advisor, so that might be a little bit more cleaned up now.
I just want to say, like, I understand the cryo test, the CRI test is not enough. This is why I keep mentioning the node ETE test. Can we simplify our node ETE test also add to their master branch? So that's kind of basically integration. This is so the block there before they are merged. So basically help them also, right, improve of those integration, because we are the major user about the run C here. No matter it is container.
Well, if I remember right, the person who did most of those buckets is right here. Hey, Lantau. I think you helped set that up with Yuju and Feisker.
Yes.
Yep.
Did we lose Lantau?
Sorry, I just replied in the chat. Yes.
So I think Brian had one more comment about lots of diff on run C. Like, Brian, I also would love that. But when I like to give some background, right? Like, Kerr has been spending a lot of time on run C, and like the fixes that's been doing are like on issues we have seen at scale over years. And so like I wish every issue is fixed, but the changes that are going in are like very, very appreciated. Like some of the head scratcher issues that we have seen at scale over the years, like he's finding fix.
Oh yeah, I understand. I'm just It's just RC has been interesting.
Right. I mean, we're getting close to 1.2.
We could probably put together some more complex tests and cry tests to try to reproduce those long running scenarios.
Yeah.
They're hard to repro.
I think part of the problem in this particular case is the number, like there's no way for us to test every permutation that's going to be run against run C. However, if we have a set of, I think Don might have mentioned something like this, having a set of node configs that are well known, like here's what AKS uses, here's what EKS uses, here's what GCE uses, here's what OpenShift needs, like run those through, we can at least have good signal on well-known cases.
Yeah, totally. So we can continue this discussion, but I also don't want to, because the system D regression come once and then last 3 years, I didn't see anything. So sometimes I also don't want to, we are over, because last time come and we quickly add a test, and then turns out it's become better as later because didn't have much issue, but the test itself have tons of the issues, so slow down us. So this is why I believe, because Ben also there back then, so that's why he's the very keen on not add too many new tests, new type of the things as the blocker. We are all open to add more CR tests and carry more configurations and make this is better deliver, but we don't want to add this kind of things become to the text for everyone. That's all. Just. We can discuss this follow up, how to do it.
Yeah, Don. Yeah, we can follow next week. Thanks.
Thanks.
So the follow up from Bruno to schedule a meeting, or we discuss it next week?
Next week's SIG Node, yeah?
We can try, but I think the time is really bad for some of the folks.
Yeah,
so I'll check with them and see if we need a separate meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, separate meeting, let me know, and I adjust the path to you.
Okay.
We'll meet you in CryTest. we'll add some system D test buckets that we'll have to configure, I guess, in our runtimes somehow. It's very doable. It's just going to be some work.
Yes.
Great, and thanks to Sergey for taking such good notes of that discussion. Do we have anything else on the agenda for today? Going once, going twice. Sounds like no.
I could add something.
You got something, Brian?
Sure. Yeah. So in virtual kubelet, we end up importing some things from kubelet. Some things have been moved out now, which is great. Like stats types are now out in a separate repo, and what have you, which is fantastic. I think specifically one thing that we still have an issue with that we're just copying at the moment, so back up, we don't want to have to import K8IO Kubernetes because it causes a whole bunch of problems. And we currently have to for things related to downward API, which currently we just copied some stuff from the files there and using what we need. I was thinking this would be a nice thing to have as a common shared implementation that is outside of K8IO Kubernetes. Problem is there's important things in there like field path and there's things that are going to be used by other components that are in K8IO Kubernetes. So it's kind of funky, but I kind of wanted to throw that out there in terms of, can we make downward API parsing, move that somewhere else? Like, I don't know if it's K8IO/kubelet or if there's a better place for that off the top of my head, but just wanted to throw that out there. Don't know if I made any sense at all.
Is there an issue for this? Because I have been seeing a bunch of different, I don't know, there was a Slack thread recently about, can you split out this from the kubelet? And I saw another issue, which was, can you split out that from the kubelet? Is there an issue, or is this being tracked somewhere?
No, I just we were looking at it and we're like, this would be worth discussing at least. And yeah.
Yeah, Brian, I suggest file the issue and include all the pros, cons. I can share a little bit the cons I recently discovered. A lot of things move out of the main Kubernetes, which is good, right? That's what we want. But also add a lot of cost for people maintain and maintain after release and provide services. At least as the one of the vendor, and I realize actually the qualification for customer as a vendor, and also it is the cost much higher right now. So I think the more we move out, I found less we have the clear owner. A lot of things used to be in the main KK repository. Yep. So basically it's very easy for us to say, oh, here's the SIG Node on whatever. And then we have the group of the community, big community, and group of people on. A lot of things move out. And so during each Kubernetes release, we may forget. Like the SIG Node actually did a good job. We have the SAID weather, we have NPD, but honestly, we have a lot of time. Last couple of years, I try very hard to identify new owner when the people move on with their career and job. New owner for SAID weather, thanks David, and also like new owner for NPD. So and also new owner for some other component. So this is the challenge I just want to throw here to the community, because we as a community, a lot of things move out. We still have to proactively identify the new owner who is on. It is really easy for open source community. It's easy to miss. Like for example, recently I found a kind cluster actually don't have clear ownership in the community. And used to be actually it's not that because during the development phase, and now actually it is much harder to find who is the owner, those kind of things. So this is downward API is quite important for Kubernetes customer and user. Of course, maybe it's won't be falling apart, but I have this concern because people take for granted and then don't carefully own those kind of things. End up could be like the RunC issue. We didn't upgrade. They have their own release pipeline, and we didn't upgrade frankly enough, and because that's the actual overhead, not like today bundled together. And then end up we have the more compatibility issue, integration issue, testing issue. I just share here my first, because even yesterday I started discussing that kind of things with someone else. I just since you mentioned this one.
Yep, I definitely appreciate that and experience some of that in some of the other projects I work on. So definitely, yeah. I will open an issue so we can discuss with the greater community and
yes, please.
See if it makes sense or not. And
totally. If there's the more people have that demanding, then we can talk about how to carefully maintain this kind of complexity, right? Yep. So it's based on the demanding from the community and the users.
Makes sense.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
Do we have anything else for today? I think some people already dropped earlier, so probably should call it. But I'll see everybody next week, if not sooner. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye, folks.